Good evening and welcome to Waterville Library. In the spirit of Frederick Fair, it's past 5:30, so we're going to start on time. He was really a great appreciator of punctuality, I've learned. And when he was in charge of the Centennial Parade for Waterville, like a magical process, that parade ran on time. You know, over 2 miles long, it was 38 minutes in duration, and all agreed that it was the most beautifully executed parade that has ever happened. So, in his spirit, I'm going to get started talking about our wonderful Waterville. My name is Sarah Sutton, and I get to work here at the Waterville Library, and I also volunteer at the Waterville Historical Society, the Reddington Museum, which is right down on Silver Street. And so at my disposal has been so many of our community treasures, just a wonderful array of primary sources, including journals, memorabilia items, real artifacts. It's really so I have been diving into Waterville's history. Now, this is my hometown, but I'm surprised by how little history I learned about Waterville when I was growing up here. Somehow I managed to get through, almost 40 years without really knowing too much about this town that I have always loved, and it's always been just a treasured part in my heart. So I'm grateful to know these stories, but I want you to know that the stories you'll hear tonight and the history bits I'll tell are going to be coming to you through my lens. There are other individuals who are far more learned than I and who spent much more time learning the secrets of our communities. Some of those individuals are right here, and I want to certainly honor them. Bob Chenard, who is with us tonight, who has been a tremendous saver of stories in our community and really deserves recognition for his work. And I'm going to give recognition to another teacher of history, Bill Founders here. He was one of my favorite teacher at Waterville High School, and really made history. So I also want to acknowledge the fine work of past Waterville Historical Society President, Bill Arnold, who really has just done a tremendous job over the years and decades that he's been serving Waterville at really saving our stories and providing us opportunities to share them and celebrate them. And before Bill, Ernest Mariner, who was before my time, but I think is still a remembered dear friendly face, was also a real champion of our community stories. Now, much of the information that I might be sharing tonight comes from Dean Mariner, who seems to have done the most exhaustive sort of work in really Waterville stories. He cites nothing. So that's the beauty. So these volumes over here, these are the actual transcribes of his Little Talks on Common Things, which he did here in Waterville as a radio program for decades and decades. I think it was the longest running radio program with a corporate sponsor. It was sponsored by Kai Spiver. So he cites nothing in there, and I have asked around, and everyone kind of agrees that if he says that it was that way, then we can just accept him at his word. So know that some of the information may not be factually true, it's Mariner true. That I'll be sharing tonight. So with that, I wanted to share with you first this wonderful prologue from this souvenir of Waterville, the University City of Maine, which is a slogan that I think many of us may not have heard about our dear Waterville City. This was published in 1898. And I just love this. It says, Waterville, the University City of Maine, has waited too long to be discovered. An exceptional city, blessed by heaven with a charming site, a wealth and variety of resources, such as crowned by few spots on earth, she is kept in the shadow. Delightful in landscape, a pleasant clime, Mother Nature's richest heiress. Her sponsors allowed her to be a wallflower, while far less favorable cities are swinging merrily from the dance. She has not only been neglected abroad, but she has been unappreciated at home. Her many charms, so patent and so potent to all who will but look around and see, have too often been lost sight of in the hurry and rush of business rather than the indifference to her beauties. To the few who have granted the eyes to see and the hearts to exalt in her manifold beauties, to their individual efforts is due what little knowledge the outside world has of her beauty and fertility of resources. So, it goes on in that wonderful spirit. But I'm thinking, that's kind of the truth today. As I think about Waterville and I think about her place right now in kind of our larger where we are in our own community's history, but also where we are within the state. And so I guess what I wanted to share with this, just the gorgeous writing of, that only can happen in the late 19th century, but also just the fact that, as I've looked into Waterville's history, what I've seen are these common themes. It's the story of Waterville is one that as it really turns out to be one of creativity and convergence. The city's slogan is not just like a clever kind of gimmick, as I'm delighted to find out. It really is a community where we have welcomed innovation and inspiration, and we have really sought collaboration and community gathering. It's just been somehow, whatever happens in this little part of the world, that's what happens here, which is exciting and certainly true. So a bit about the documents I'm going to be showing you. I wanted to start with this wonderful picture, which is one of my favorites of down, like kind of a historic Waterville photo. It's a scene that really evokes a lot of memories for individuals who've been here in the community for a while. But it's a lie. Or I call it a lie. But it's a bustling scene. You're looking south on Main Street back when there was two-way traffic, for those who are just seeing what it might have looked like for parking and stuff like that. And so this is a photo that I came across in the wonderful archives of the Historical Society, which is ably overseen by Fred Johnson, who's in back, and who I've not yet acknowledged, but when I give him props and recognition for his fine work in stewarding that organization. And so this picture, a while ago, I posted it on a Facebook group. Many of us are on Facebook, and so there's a wonderful site called You're from Waterville, and it's a vibrant, online community where there's lots of dialogue and sharing of Waterville-related items and photographs. And so I posted this picture, and by and large, the response was, why isn't Waterville like this anymore? Why isn't it? Well, Waterville was only like this on one day. So as I look in the documents, taking photographs on face value, is sketchy, and leads often to misunderstandings. So this is a picture through my history sleuthing. My mother's in the audience, so I would like to point out that I was a history major, so I'm finally using my degree. Thank God. So one of the things that was interesting to me about this picture is not just the bustling, two-way traffic and all, but the people. Like the streets of Waterville, I've never seen packed with people that way. Like never, except for Taste of Great Waterville, but just as a regular scene. And then up here, I'm going to sneak through. You can barely see them. There are people sitting on top of buildings, which I know Chief Massey would not be pleased with today if that would happen in rare occurrence. So, by doing some research actually at the Haynes Theater, the Marquee, and finding when the movie was playing, we're able to identify that actually the scene was taken on BJ Day, when Japan surrendered. So of course, in that community, everyone's coming out. This was a nation at war for years. And so I get that you would come out and celebrate with your neighbors and just be free. And so I love this picture because of the multiple layers that we learn. When we just kind of look at it at face value, then kind of digging deeper. It could be that downtown was busier and more bustling, had more pedestrian traffic in the 40s. But this is just a one piece of just one day when a nation was celebrating. So then we're going to dig in, guys, to the big story, the big wonderful story of Waterville. So people have been around in Waterville in this area for a long, long time. The oldest fish pier actually in North America is on the Sebasticook River and dates back to about the time of the Great Pyramids. So this has always been a region which has been really awesome to live in. The winters are tough, they're not for everybody, but if you can stand the black flies and get through the snow, people have been able to prosper in this region. And so if we look at, we're going to start, somebody asked, say, like, how far are you going back? As far as pretty far back. Because what I realized was thinking about, there's some dotted lines, and we'll go over this. Thinking about Maine, I was trying to figure out why Maine? Why would they have come from, their merry old European colonies and set up a colony in Maine, which is a tough place to go. And so it was by looking at kind of taking the steps, even farther back, that I'm able to see, kind of understand better how this all came to be. So this is a map. It's actually from a historical atlas, so it shows yes, the voyages of important discoveries. This was what it said. This is an atlas from the 1950s, which are fun to use. And so you see over here, this is the New World, so to speak. So this is North America, and we have Maine kind of right about here, and over here we have over here. So our France and England. So clearly, as an basis of understanding Waterville, it was important for me, kind of learning about my hometown, that I needed to understand that France and England hate each other's guts. They do, and they always have. And of course they do, because England is a landlocked, little tiny island with finite amount of natural resources, whose access to the big continent is blocked by France. Mom, all those Regency romances I used to read in high school and junior high paid off, because that, I think in large part, that hostility between these nations really did and continues to really spill over into this new world. They took their drama with them when they set off to colonize this new world. Now, it was in 1497 that Henry VII of England, he sent his expedition to the shores of North America. Now, that was only a few years after Columbus had been sent off by Spain. Now we can see by, of all things, by studying the currents of the ocean, we can understand why some, colonies were set up where they did. So, this is Spain, and so where the currents of the ocean, they got into view. That's where they ended up in West Indies, and we thought you had, found this great discovery. So up here, the Gulf Stream pulls you more so that you hit North America on this edge. Leif Erikson, the Vikings, they have identified that there was that Viking exploration of Nova Scotia or Labrador, like 1100 AD. So, the water does what it wants to. And so that's where they ended up. And a lot of the French and English colonies ended up in this area. I know. So in 1497, Henry VII sent his expedition, led by John and Sebastian Cabot. They reached Labrador, actually. Oh, an anniversary tomorrow on June 24th, 1497. So happy anniversary to them. And a year later, Sebastian Cabot came back, and he actually sailed along the Maine coast and actually ended up in the Massachusetts Bay. He hoped to find, of course, the route to China, but instead he got to claim this whole new world from Labrador to New York for England. And then, a few decades later, Francis I, commissioned Jacques Cartier to go set off more land to conquer. There was so much of it. And so that's when he made the discovery of the St. Lawrence River, and he laid claim to all of that territory. So I hope that you're getting a sense that as people that hit Earth, they kind of, this is mine now, this is my space. Apparently in 1583, Sir Humphrey Gilbert, who was led off by Elizabeth I, claimed Newfoundland, I love this, in a very solemn and formal manner. I don't even know what that would look like, but I'd like to imagine Sir Gilbert, with his very solemn manner, they claimed this land. And so in 1603, Henry IV of France granted to Sir de Monts the entirety of North America between the 40th and the 46th parallel. So that's almost like all of North America. So this land is yours. So as we continue to divide up the land and lay claim to these natural resources, that's becoming a bigger theme. And natural resources are increasingly going to play a role in really the colonization of this new world. As I mentioned, that England being a landlocked country, they kind of had some problems having so little physical land, which I think in large part kind of fueled their colonization efforts. So for instance, even wood, the reason they got into burning coal was because they didn't have enough trees on their island to burn to support, to keep them warm. So those are, kind of the motivating factors for a lot of this colonization. So in the early 1600s, we had the great exploration of the Maine coast by Samuel Champlain, who actually published really accurate maps in Paris in 1613. So it was already this wonderful sort of awareness of our great region. So we get overseas coverage, which was great. And what we hear about, as we hear accounts of these efforts, what I'm sorry to say we've learned is that, in fact, the English colonizers were not very friendly to the natives who lived there. It was the French who really were, French settlers who were much well, they were much kinder, they were much more respectful, they really, weren't, well, some terrible stories that we learned were one of the expeditions, in order to bring back proof of, show off his great discovery, he kidnapped 5 natives, 5 people, and kind of took them back to England with them. And there's a terrible story that Dean Mariner recounts of English sailors who wanted to know whether Native American babies could swim from birth, and so they tipped over a canoe here with a mother and baby, and the baby got sick and ended up dying. And it turned out that she was the wife of one of the chiefs. And so when it came to negotiate land and like trade deals, the English has not done a good job of really creating goodwill and fostering relationships of harmony and good understanding. Like, they were really terrible. Mariner notes that there were never any records of any violent acts by Native Americans against settlers, except for that one guy 1692, who got killed because he was cheating. People. So he did get killed by Native people, but that was the last of it. So we can understand, I hope, that this really does play a large part in our understanding of Waterville. Even something as this is the forest primeval, as we think about the impact of the Acadians and the culture. What I didn't know 5 years ago was that the Kennebec River used to be the boundary, the legal boundary between Acadia, the French colony, and New England. And so as it took a lot of that kind of understanding and learning about the history of Waterville to be like, oh, that's for it to all kind of make sense. So as we go, I'm getting off topic. So things that you should continue to know about this is the civilization of Waterville. In 1751, the British Parliament passed an act for encouraging the making of potashes for British plantations in America. And what that did was that it really encouraged the deforestation, or the clearing of the land to make potash, which is the stuff that's left over after you burn wood. And the British used it for lye, for soap making, and there was a British process, like a wool processing thing that they really loved for their British wool, and required a lot of this potash. So, in addition to fueling their big massive ships, they needed a lot of access to wood. So that was in 1751 that they passed that act. Know that at that time in this region, there were trees that, they talked about pine trees, colonists talked about pine trees that were 6 to 8 feet in diameter. So imagine, the forest primeval, that's what our regions would have looked like pre-colonization of European settlers. So when I go up to Baxter Cape Park, I always think this is the forest primeval. So in 1754, we had the creation of Fort Halifax, which you've all seen pictures of, so you don't have to see pictures of that. And that was, to encourage English settlement, up the Kennebec. This was after, of course, a few more decades and decades of fighting between the French and the English. Really took the French and Indian War. Terrible bloodshed that really wiped out some colonies. Until John Winslow built that ford over across the river at the point, or the mouth between the Sebasticook and the Kennebec. So that was finished in 1754, and John Lithgow, should you make that song? And he didn't attack really Lithgow until 1766. And the Lithgow stayed around, and you can find it over the Lithgow Street, which is on the flood zone. And I want to just mention briefly William's daughter, Sarah. Sarah Lithgow, because she's an interesting. So Sarah Lithgow, during the expedition of Benedict Arnold to go and seize Quebec, and they did a little layover in Fort Halifax in 1775, Sarah Lithgow attracted the attention of one of Arnold's soldiers. It was a young soldier named Aaron Burr, whom some of you may remember, our dear third vice president of the United States, U.S. Senator, and also, an illegal duelist. So his political career ended abruptly. So apparently, Aaron Burr really enjoyed the nightlife of Winslow. Even, I swear, this is a pretty Dean Mariner, he claimed it. There were a number of taverns over in Windsor that really afforded some entertainment for these visiting soldiers. And Aaron Burr developed some romantic relationships with a number of young ladies on this visit, very short visit. You know, he packed a lot into his life. And so rumor has it that he, in order to woo the wonderful Sarah Lithgow, found pieces of silver birch. This is a piece of silver birch from down on Tectonic Falls, and you can still see them there today. So, and he would write her poems on the back of these love poems, on the back of these silver birch pieces, and you can see that actually it's. I'll pass it around. And you're like, oh, look, you could use an ink on that. Now, alas for poor Aaron. Sarah rebuffed his advances, and she was not having none of it. And I think she made a good choice because Dean Mariner says that Aaron abandoned his Indian princess girlfriend, like that's really to go pursue Sarah. So I know it could be that it was Aaron's falseness who really doomed that Quebec expedition of Arnold. But of course, Benedict Arnold did stop by on his way up to go seize Quebec. He was unsuccessful because he tried to beat the river, and you never beat the river. You never beat the river. All the floods that whenever they come, to teach us as Watervillians, you never beat the river. And he didn't beat the French either. Bless his heart. So there is a marker in Stanway Square, which is commemorating his trip up the Kennebec, and there's actually a professor Colby who's done some really interesting work about how the geology of the river was really what thwarted, which just beat him down. Apparently Arnold was very popular, good-looking fellow who was very well-liked by his soldiers, and I read one account, it was written I think in the 1860s, about Arnold's trip. They're like, well, you know what, if he had died on that trip, we would have a very different view of Benedict Arnold as Americans. So I don't know whether that's true, but I offer that to you as that's some information that I have learned about Benedict Arnold. That's so fascinating. So we can leave this slide now, I'm relieved to say. But there's a lot going on, and it was really helpful for, I think it is helpful for Waterville, for our understanding of the community, that we know how it all fits, and why the heck would someone have come up here? But this sweet little spot of land, that is banked by the Messalonsky and the Kennebec and Sebastopol, really does make up a rich region where people have, as I said, have fluctuating years. This is an artifact that was uncovered at the Lockwood Mills project back in the 1800s. I mentioned that there were Native Americans who lived here, obviously before the settlers. They largely left by the end of the 1600s due to pestilence and fighting. When I was a camper at a summer camp in Maine, we used to play this. We divided to half the campus with Abenakis and half the campus at Penobscots. And so as a 7-year-old, I didn't really you just play games and Penobscot's what. So really learning that in fact there really was a war. It wasn't just a bunch of campers who were having fun during the summer. It was really poignant to know that there was nothing left, except some artifacts. And I understand that when they did the Sebastopol Dam and they removed that dam, there were a number of artifacts that revealed the ground that was revealed, and unfortunately, I understand looters took those artifacts. So that's unfortunate. So those treasures aren't for everybody to use anymore. So as we delve into leave this time period, there's a couple of people that I'm going to talk about in Waterville history who really had tremendous influence on the course of the community, and who are also just pretty darn good stories. I'm a librarian, I like a good story, and Asa Reddington is one of the best stories I know. Asa Reddington was one of our early Waterville settlers, and he kept a journal, so we know about his life because he wrote it down. And it turned out that he had a pretty remarkable life, as many people do, that we often don't know about until we look inside. And so Asa Reddington was born in Massachusetts. His father was a ship captain who died at sea, taking all the family money with him. The ship went down, Asa's father drowned, who took the fortune, leaving Asa and his mother and all their, his siblings, and I think she was pregnant too, destitute. And so Asa's mother was forced to send him off to other places to live. She had no other choice. This was during the 1770s, and so early 1770s, and so she sent her kids off to other places. So Asa spent most of his life after his father died, or most of his childhood in, well, as he said, from one hard master to another. So he just kind of was shuffled around from place to place until the age of 16, he joined the Continental Army, which changed his life. And so Asa Remington never achieved high rank on the highest rank in the Continental Army, but he served faithfully. He served for 3 years, 3 terms, and he can see it's hard to read. It's screechy, scratchy, but this is one of the items that's over at the Remington Museum, and it's actually an honor roll, and it says the names of His Excellency's Guard. So Asa, due to his fine service and just his strength of character, he was really he was a good person. He was a good person. He ended up being one of George Washington's honor guards. And in the wonderful centennial history of Waterville, he recounts some of his experiences in the Army, including his interactions with George Washington. It's always nice to get a sneak peek, behind the scenes look at the father of our country. And apparently, Mrs. Washington once made Asa soup. These are the exciting things that we can learn from history. So Asa ended up settling in Vassavara after the completion of the war, and then ended up going over in Winslow, Waterville, and it was with his father-in-law that they first put the dam up on the Kennebec River, and really, that was in 1792, and really changed everything. Before that, there had been some dams on the Messalonsky, which is a river that was far more easy to tame at that time period, really investing in the kind of infrastructure needed to harness the Kennebec, which is, as we all know, the queen of Maine's rivers. According to Mariners, we called it. It really was a critical tipping point for Waterville. So, but I want to just mention another thing about Asa Remington, because part of the story that is such a treasure to me is are the things that we have from him, like his journal, and we have information about his family through his grandsons. So these two young men are William and Francis Heath. They are grandsons of Asa Remington. They are sons of Emily Reddington Heath, and William Heath. Oh, they both served in the Civil War. William Heath ended up losing his life in battle. Before he died, he had a really remarkable life that is remarkable even by today's standards. He was apparently brilliant, and at the age of 14, he ended up with his father on this continental journey, but then ended up shipping off on a boat by himself as he traveled the world by himself as a teenager in the mid-1800s, and kept a journal of it, which is wonderful and colored by a teenager's observations about the world at that time. So he carefully notes what people were wearing. He's delighted to know that many individuals in southern climes don't wear any clothes at all. So really, that journal is available at the Remington Museum, and it's wonderful. A really delightful little journal. So he ended up, after his little transatlantic journey, going to Yale, and then came back to Waterville College, where his family lived. And so graduated from Waterville College, which is now Colby, and then ended up volunteering to serve in the Civil War, the War of the Rebellion. And on the eve of a battle, I think it was even the last battle for him, he wrote a song about his grandfather's gun, Asa's gun. And I show a copy of it right now. This is a copy of this house at the Library of Congress. He wrote a song called The Corporal's Musket, because apparently when Asa was coming back in the Revolution, the battle was done, the Continental Army had been disbanded, he was wounded and couldn't carry his gun. Now, this is not his gun. His real gun has an exciting ending. But I wanted to show you what his gun would have looked like. This is a flintlock rifle, and it would have been used in that time period, and it's heavy and giant, and holding it, I understand why a gun would have been important to an individual at that time period, and why it would have been critical to have continued access to that. So Asa paid a guy, some random stranger, $1 to carry the gun, and it's heavy, so all the way back home. And Asa promised that he would pay the money back or earn the money, so he ended up getting the gun back. But it was obviously a really treasured family heirloom, and apparently it hung over his fireplace for years and years and years until the gun went missing. And we had a nice little bit of history mystery trying to figure out what the heck happened to this gun. I had really hoped to be able to tell you that particular gun, which is really identical to the gun Asa would have had, was Asa's gun, but it's not. Asa's gun was stolen. Okay, this is great. So one of Asa's granddaughters, Caroline, ended up inheriting the gun, and she, at the age of 35, in the the 1880s, 1870s, married a European count. Now, this was the time period where you had a lot of American heiresses marrying into European aristocracy. Think of the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, by a title. And so she picked herself a count from Poland, a Polish count who turned out to be somewhat of a cad, I'm sorry to admit. And more than that, he was, I think 5 years after the marriage, she reverted back to her married name. But on his way out the door, he took the gun with him. So he abandoned his wife, and on his way out, he stole the gun, and we've never heard of it since. So, unfortunately, while I can't offer you the gun, I can offer you the exciting story that it was stolen by a Polish count who was up to no good. Which in some ways is, the story is as good as the gun. So the song is lovely, and I wish that I played piano so that I could play you the song, but I don't play piano. But if you guys play piano, let me know, and I will volunteer you to learn this tune. It is really charming and sweet, and just a dear testament to a grandson's love. So he ended up dying in battle. William, his wife died, child died, infant child died shortly after, and then she died too. And their remaining children were raised by their grandparents. It was a sad, sad tale. This is a lovely little bit that I uncovered, that they did sing the song Once Upon a Time back in 1916, sung by Howard Potter. But I don't have the song for you tonight. I don't. Nor do I have a song that Asa Reddington claimed was playing at the time of Cornwallis's surrender at the Battle of Yorktown, because Reddington got to be there too. And he says, according to rumor, that the song playing by the band was the song "The World Turned Upside Down." Now, that again has not been verified, but that's her Asa Reddington story. So I just share with you Emily Reddington Heath because she's so formidable looking, and she actually is the creator of this wonderful item that's in the museum's collection, which is a bracelet made out of her hair. So one of the archaic art forms that we hope that people don't bring back is this really nice splendid hair bracelet. The unique items that you can find. This one. So, I know, I just love that. So as Waterville continues to build and prosper, by 1791 there were only 63 taxpayers who lived on the west side of Winslow, which is this side. I told you in 1792, Asa built the dam, but the access to the dam again was from kind of this the west side of the river, which is the Waterville side. And so it became clear that, as development really started to take hold along the Kennebec and these mill spaces, and as they had continued success with the mill development along the Messalonsky, right down the road from where I grew up, that bridge that's under construction right now, was actually the site of one of McKechnie's, the first mill in the Messalonsky was right there at the Water District building. So there remains still the problem of trying to have a town that has two sides of the river and no bridge. They were relying on ferry boats to try to, shuffle across. As you can imagine, residents on both sides of the river complained about the access to municipal services. Where is the town meeting going to be held? Who gets church service? All these things really pull these two communities, or the two parts of the community, and nobody wanted to build a bridge. So in 1802, Waterville incorporated as an individual town. It was on this day back in 1802, which is why today is in fact Waterville's 213th birthday. I know,
Which is fun.
Which is fun. And so this is a picture of the old city hall that got torn down. I don't know when it got torn down. Bob, do you remember?
What's that?
Do you know when this building got torn down?
That was torn down about 1950, because I remember walking by it all the time. I was a kid. There's a hot dog stand right next door.
The hot dogs are gone too.
No, it wasn't that. That's just near this rotary. Because that was Marty's or something like that. Yeah, that's too bad, because that's the oldest building in Waterville.
It was. Yeah, it was. And so this is who puts the East Building House, the East Meeting House, and was replaced the Meeting House by, of course, the City Hall, which was completed in 1902. So there, became activities started buzzing. Waterville really started to grow as a community. There were some individuals who, I mentioned Dr. Moses Appleton, who came here to Waterville as we have his journal that was really exciting to read, and his account book of what it was like to be a healthcare provider in the late 1700s. It was really fascinating and hard, and not a really great way to make a living. So Appleton, like a lot of other physicians, really did dabble in other business interests. And so I would show this with this is the bylaws by BYC. I know, right? And of the Titanic Bridge. And Appleton is one of the names on that. It's over here, along with Nathaniel Gilman, who was Waterville's most affluent citizen, Asa Reddington, and Timothy Boutell, or Squire Boutell, I guess he was called. And so these folks had gone to the city or the town and said, can you build a bridge? And the town voters said no. They didn't want to pay for it. So they went out and raised the money privately to build this bridge, which was washed away in flood. Like a lot of other bridges in our history, unfortunately, we are prone to bridge loss in this particular area. So, this is another. It's hard to read. This is another kind of complaint, or another petition to the city with local residents. So there really was, and I show it to demonstrate that so citizens at the time were really actively involved in their community. It was really important to them, and I think there was a few of them, that they really, everyone pitched in. And in fact, at this time, there was really, everyone pitched in just to stay alive. There are wonderful accounts of what it was like to really settle this land, and the amount of work and effort required of the settlers to just exert every day. There's no days off, there was no breaks. It was like the worst winter all the time. And in fact, one year, there was even like 11 months of snow here in the early 1800s, and so July was the only month where it didn't snow. So if anyone complains about snow again, I'll just say. And during that year, in fact, the whole community almost starved because they ran out of food and they couldn't grow crops to get new food. And it was thanks to the generosity of one individual who really, who shared his seed and really saved all of these communities. So while there was, a really requirement to work hard, everyone really worked hard and pitched in. And, you didn't want to ask for help, but if you needed help, it was right there for you. I read the terrible account of building roads in this area where it would take 2 days to just get a mile's worth of trail for you to walk. And so just carving out the land around here for us to occupy and to hold, just took it out of all of us. So when kids say that, it's so hard, you're like, well, it was harder when you were, it was harder. So Waterville's activity really started to boom. And it took really a lot of different diverse sort of industries, including sawmills, including sash factories and blinds. This is Moses Appleton's shareholding for the steamboat factory. In fact, there was a kind of a lively shipbuilding industry here at the Kennebec, right in Peacock Bay. Both big wooden ships, like ships that are like 290-ton ships, built right here where Lockwood Mills are now, and steamboats. So as they really figured out ways to travel the river. The steamboats were there's a picture that's floating around called the City of Waterville. It features a steamboat. I think we have a copy of it in the room across the hall. That was from a later steamboat venture back in the 1890s that unfortunately was kind of a flop. And there were some unfortunate steamboat accidents too. I'm sorry to say it was tough living to be there on Kennebec. But not as tough as the stagecoach riders. This is an advertisement for the stagecoach, because of course before the railroad really took hold, and the stagecoach was the way for you to get from Bangor to Waterville. Now I have all these lively kind of images of stagecoaches in my head because I read a lot of historical fiction. And so one of the things that Mariner points out about the skill of these stagecoach drivers is in fact their use of our use of the word coach to refer to an individual who's overseeing small people running around the ball in the field comes from this, to be able to successfully kind of coach a car around these kind of little twists and turns. The roads were not spacious and wide, they were terrifying, and you face a lot of dangers, truthfully. So that's I like knowing that about word coach. Thankfully, we've had other means of transportation that appeared. This is a small detail of a map from 1824. As Waterville still remains largely, kind of not very populated. And one of the things I never thought about when I was a kid here was the fact that College Avenue is in fact named after a college. So I lived in Waterville that had the college on the, it was already on the hill. So I had, it's like one of those like, oh, duh, of course. But nobody ever told me, so I never knew until I figured it out. And I was like, oh. So this is a lovely little views of College Avenue and Front Street, and then the Kennebec River. So you can see how the college, felt probably very spacious at the time that it was, settled back then, because they only moved here in 1818. But within 100 years, they were already moving at alternate sites. This is a map of 1850, and I just showed it's hard to see the detail, but it's nice to be able to see, I hope. You can see that the town's starting to fill out, and more people are kind of moving in. There are a lot more streets, a lot more houses, and our city is really extending. Now, one of the things I didn't know until recently was that Hollingsworth and Whitney, across the river, the old skyscraper, was built on an island. Huh. Like, I know. Nobody ever told me. I never figured it out until I really looked at the map. So I've been looking at this water line at the Kennebec River and being like, what's the island? Oh, you don't really see it anymore. So in 1855, again, you can see some nice details about where there were some natural land features that continued to influence our experience with the space. And then as we go leading the 1850s and going into excuse me if I lost my train of my thing. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So as we leave the 1850s, we go into another expansion of Waterville's life. The Catholic shirt factory was built in Waterville in the 1840s. Again, trying to seize that, that river power, trying to make it hospitable, trying to get industry happening there. And in addition, in 1830, the Canada Road was completed. Now, the Canada Road connected, this part of the area, the Maine with Quebec. We're not going to go back to the map because you guys have seen enough of the map. But what that did was it really opened up a great channel of traffic from kind of north to south. And so as we continue to, Waterville continues to kind of grow and prosper, with the railroad arriving in the 1840s, and new immigrants coming too in the 1860s. We had a wave of Lebanese immigrants who were fleeing strife in the old world. We had a real surge of Waterville really, started booming. The first French store, speaking store, opened up in 1862. The first French settler came in 1827, and so already Waterville is, still continuing to embrace that very lively, cultural mix that really continues to, I think, flavor our community beautifully today. In 1866, the Taconic Water Power was formed, and they put another dam across the river. But we have to mention this the big event that happened in the 1800s, which of course was the Civil War, that really really had a tremendous impact on our community. 1 in 9 people left, to go fight in this war. And I'm sharing up here the commission papers for Isaac Sparrow Banks. And Isaac Sparrow Banks he's one of my heroes. And he was wonderful. He moved to Waterville in 1858 and quickly immersed himself in community life. And then when war was called, I'm pleased to say that Waterville's soldiers volunteered with gladness. There were a lot of, I've been reading some interesting scrapbooks from some Civil War veterans from that time period. And it revealed, a much different sort of United States than I had previously thought about the Civil War. I really had naively kind of thought, that the North was filled with, that everyone in the North was filled with this righteous sort of, thirst for the emancipation of the slaves, and for that, we're really filled with kind of noble thoughts. And I didn't pay attention to the fact that, in fact, there was a draft going on, and the brother fighting brother was really had a profound impact on our nation that I think that we're still trying to figure out. And as we celebrate, the 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War, we still have a long ways to go, I think. A lot of understanding to gain. So Isaac Sparrow Banks is one of my favorites because there are a couple of movies that I've seen in popular culture that are from the Civil War period. Gettysburg, featuring the famous 20th Maine Division, and a movie called Glory, which was about one of the early integrated troops. It was really, and I think Denzel Washington won an Oscar for it. And so Isaac Sparrow Banks, by some chance, had kind of experiences in the war that could be right out of either both of those movies. He was a graduate of Bowdoin College, so he kind of signed up with the 20th Maine that was led by, of course, Joshua Chamberlain, who was a professor at Bowdoin, ended up being one of our governors. And so he served in the 20th Maine as captain of Company A. Company A was known as a Waterville kind of company. There are a few others too. All in all, I think almost 500 Waterville soldiers signed up for or fought in the Civil War. Almost 100 of them died. Most of them died of disease, not actual battle wounds. We've come a long way with healthcare, I'm pleased to say. So, battle wounds seemed to be a quick kind of death sentence there. So Isaac Banks served at the Battle of Gettysburg. Reports are that he was chastised for blowing his trumpet too loudly. Or Chamberlain said, turn the trumpet down. His trumpet his cornet or little bugle is actually at the museum over in Silver Street, so it's kind of a fun thing to see. And then and this is a copy of his actual discharge papers. He fought the 20th Maine. He also fought in the U.S. 81st Colored Infantry, and where he was stationed down in New Orleans doing recruiting for the U.S. Army. So at the end of the war, he's there in the heart of Dixie, trying to get people to sign up for the Army. And there are documents that recovered where he had he kept everything, which is a blessing for people in these generations. He kept the letter, the directive that he was supposed to occupy a woman's house so that he'd take, if the woman is part of the war, as part of war efforts, you take property. And so we have in the collection a copy of this letter, and I'm sure he did it. So he ended up leaving the Army with a rank of Brevet Brigadier General. And he retired back to Maine at the end of the war. He was a passionate advocate for veterans' rights, and he was really a tireless servant to try to get soldiers pensions. That was a big deal after the end of the Civil War. There were lots of widows, lots of children, who were really suffering because of the deaths or injuries of soldiers, in this conscripted war. And so we have many document of Bangs trying to secure a pension for Chamberlain, right to the War Department, and you could just really see the ongoing challenges that that people faced. The war wasn't over when they came back. And of course, PTSD wasn't as topic back then, but there's a fine book called The Military History of Waterville, which was written by Essex Fairbanks, and it was included in the 1902 Centennial History, which is really chock full of really great stuff. Now, I mentioned this particularly because he mentions in there the names of the soldiers, and he asks in the book that, that Watervillians read them with reverent spirit. Now, I'm not going to name all the names, but I urge all of you, if you love Waterville, then if you have a little minute, then just give her son some attention, because it really is, I really appreciated reading this that he wrote as a veteran, and it was a really rich, wonderful thing to read this, so so please, give that a shot. So, following the war, which of course, almost decimated our dear Colby College, some of these students and faculty went off to join the efforts that Colby in fact shut down for a little bit because there weren't enough students to stay open. But following the war, Waterville started really entering into a really wonderful boom time. Colby was saved thanks to the generosity of a wonderful Waterville resident, Gardner Colby. So that was you see College Avenue. This is where the old Rite Aid is, or the old Elmwood Hotel. So College Avenue down that way, Main Street that way. And again, as I look at these old photographs of Waterville, of course you can't help but see the trees, which gave Waterville her nickname of the Elm City. So we moved to Waterville. I moved to Waterville after the elms were gone. So I never got to see the elm trees. And I hope I will someday. So I shared this with you guys because this is kind of a neat thing that covered in the article. It's the seal of Waterville College. Now, of course, Colby, up until the 1860s, had been called Waterville College, and it was located in Waterville. And it changed its name, when the college actually had been relocated to Waterville from the Boondocks where it had first been. And so what I find really cool about this, same old year, the sun, but in the Waterville College era, there was also, this is the sun, which is still featured in Colby's seal today, but we see a moon and the earth too. And so the seal was changed when it became Colby University, going to just one big sun, and then as Colby College, it continues to keep the sun. But I loved that little discovery that was on a seal, which is why it has that the lines through it, of a paper land deed from Timothy Littell, who did a lot of land swapping with Colby, or Waterville College at the time. Excuse me. So here's a view of downtown in 1860s. This is where Larson's Jeweler is. Downtown, of course, had many a wooden building for many a long time, all of which were remarkably susceptible to fire. In the same way that our bridges were prone to washing away, buildings in downtown were really, they just seemed to catch on fire a lot, and all throughout the community, of course. The Waterville Fire Department has recently, Lieutenant Scott Holz from the Fire Department has published a book on the history of the fire department, and it's fascinating. I know that they saved this library in 1959 when we had our great big fire, and have a wonderful archive of Waterville history about fire. So this building, of course, is gone. It burned down. Here are some scenes from the activities happening on the river. This is a view of, you can see Taconic Bridge, which is right down here. And the plethora of mills that used to be there. I didn't know that Lockwood Mills, took over a whole big chunk of land where there had been little individual enterprises there for, decades. But that's in fact what happened. it became clear that, Waterville after the war, that they needed some new industry. The shipbuilding had dried up, railroad was still getting in the works, and, people coming home from the war needed jobs. A lot of the jobs that they had left behind when they went off to war had been filled by new immigrants who were coming down the Canada Road, who were coming in and filling those vacancies. So Waterville needed some, pick ourselves up by the bootstraps, so to speak, and try something new. And so what happened along the riverfront was they started, this is a tough one to see, but you can see a little skyline. They started buying up those little mills along where the Lockwood mills are now. Purposely intending to be able to purchase all these little, you see all these little mills, this is a view, no data on this photo, but you can see lots of little buildings all up and down the Kennebec. And in order to really harness something in a big giant way, you needed land. So some citizens decided to buy up these little tiny mills and put it together as one big package, which of course was why Lockwood Mills came to Waterville. And thank God they did. So Lockwood Mills, moved here in the 1870s, and they, not to say that they really saved Waterville, but they were a real blessing to this town, because what they did was they put, they had jobs. It was hundreds and hundreds of jobs in a community that had been largely, kind of small enterprise or agricultural, or fishing, of course, but. So that was really a transformative moment for Waterville to be able to have this major employer. It changed our landscape for sure. That's a covered bridge, one of the many that's washed away. You can see, I included this for you guys to see, pointing out that Waterville has always been a feisty community with strong opinions and a real appreciation of, of public discourse. So this is a caucus, it was signed for a caucus in 1876 of people who don't want to pay for another bridge. They don't want a fee bridge, because we're toll bridges, which is how they were able to fund that infrastructure. Bridges are not cheap to build. But I love that history shows us that people are still the same after all these years. They still have the same feelings. So that's a picture of the new bridge and new mills. And you can see that both of the mills at this point, both mill number 1 and mill number 2 are in place. So they were processing cotton. They were making fabric. They were a huge explosion of these types of factories all up and down the northeast corridor. So the big mills in Lawrence, Mass, if you drive through there, or Lowell, there was this type of activity happening everywhere. But the Lockwood mills were really designed to set Waterville apart from the competitors, and were purposely constructed to compete with the activity that was happening in Lewiston and Biddeford, all the mill action there. That really, there's some great, language they used about why, the dam, the Kennebec, the water power, the Kennebec River is the most wonderful in all of New England. But it seemed to be great, and it continued to drive development and drawing people to the community. If there was 1,000 people working in those mills, that part explained this huge population growth that we began to experience as we neared the end of the 1800s and reached the 20th century. So I show these bridges because I love these pictures. As somebody ended up taking a picture, I don't know if you can all see, somebody recorded the construction or desolation of the railroad bridge across the Kennebec River. That was another bridge that was always susceptible to floods. And in fact, during, they knew a great flood was coming, they would actually fill railroad cars with heavy rocks and put it on the bridge to keep the bridge from floating away. And so this picture shows what I think, I don't know, there's no dates on them, the transition from having a wooden railroad bridge to a metal railroad bridge. Or it looks like we have just been totally neglecting the safety of these individuals. So there's
in this picture, you can see that there's wooden kind of structures underneath here. We can see that these are disappearing. It almost looks as if this train is going to fall into the stream, but it doesn't. And we assume that, that we have here perhaps the completed railroad bridge that still stands. I know, a lot of bridges, a lot of need to really navigate the water. The water is, it's always here. Always here. So here's a map of 1879. You can see the Waterville looks really booming, baby. A lot of activity, a lot of growth. We can see that, our north and south ends are really bustling places, and increased kind of housing density in the center of the city. Pine Grove Cemetery is over here now. Originally the cemetery, well, they were earliest settlers, in fact, are probably under Hamlin, underneath the Kennebec Water District building. Or again, around that area is where the earliest cemetery was. But the Veterans Park across the street was the city cemetery until Pine Grove opened up in 1851. And they say that they moved all the bodies over, but rumor has it that, in fact, our dear Ace of Reddington, knew that they were going to be transitioning, moving graves from one cemetery to this new site, so he put a curse on anyone who was going to move his grave. And so he was in fact buried over across the street on Elm Street. And then there's this big giant monument over in Pine Grove, it's huge, that is in memory of Asa Reddington, but his body is still across the way. And I have a good friend whose name is Anne, and she and I often thought that it would be fun to go out and try to track down, I know! So apparently when they had done Park Street work, work on Park Street years and years and years ago, they had unfortunately uncovered some of them, some graves that hadn't been moved.
Those were Indians.
Were they? I thought they were over there. Well, so, our local history mysteries are so much fun. And if you guys want to go look for AC Reddington's grave with us, you can come with us. We will be glad for the help. We'll need it. He's going to listen for sure. Yeah, it's a huge moment. So here's a wonderful collection of images that I love that are one of kind of Waterville's lost industries, or the industry that I never thought about, because I never thought about it. Harvesting, which is in fact something that we don't do anymore. And in my life, nobody ever did, because we always had refrigerators and freezers that made ice. But the Kennebec when it froze was a great source of revenue and income for many a Waterville family. And so these were the great ice harvesters. Where was it? The
Springbrook up in
Oh, great. So Springbrook, started with ice and, now does propane. And so we, thank you.
I remember seeing that as a kid.
Ice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandmother had an ice box.
big chunks, and they would come with them, they hooked over their shoulder,
Yeah,
and break the
yeah.
them to the house.
Inside the block of ice.
Any ice today, lady?
Huh?
Wasn't there a song? Any ice today, lady? Any ice today, lady? No?
I don't think.
Well, no, yeah.
So, logging was another, industry that, we don't see anymore, but I remember seeing a big log jam, come down to Kennebec when I was a kid. Those days are gone, and the Iceman is no longer a public thing. That's right. But other things do, and here's a big wagon with cotton, for the logwood mills. Here's a lot of talk about Kennebec, that Messalowski remains a big part of our community in ways that I haven't always appreciated, but I appreciate it now. And here's a wonderful, it's a vintage photo, of course. There's a colorized, there's this gentleman sitting right here. He's very casual, there are boat houses. But apparently, the Gilman Street area, which was just, there were boat houses all along that space. And there were mills all up and down the Messalowski, even lower at Silver Street, there were mills down there. And, they were gone in my lifetime, so I never knew. Here's a picture of, this is the Gilman Street Bridge. And you guys can barely see it, but this was a famous old willow tree, the Lesalotsky willow tree. And so there's actually a woman who is posing on the tree. Right here, she's reclining in a wonderful pose. And you know, I love these old photographs of people just being people. I have to share. In cool scrapbooks that we find, you know, in old photographs, I just wanted to share that I came across this photo. I didn't scan the pictures because I'll tell you about it. In early 20th century photographs of industry, family, and cats. There's a surprising number of cat photographs in this turn of the 20th century scrapbook. Just proves that people are the same throughout history, and I always appreciated a good cat picture. Or like a good pose on a willow tree. People are so much fun. So the College Avenue leads to the trolley tracks that would have run from here to Fairfield. Again, really, it was a good time for local transportation.
And that's the president's house.
Yep, and all those trees. Yep. A bustling view of, you can see Hollingsworth and Whitney there. They moved in the late 1890s or 1892. And they, more jobs. It was jobs. They were another blessing for town. And other mills located on the river, of course, polluted the river like crazy, and there are some not-so photos of these mills just spewing their waste products into our beautiful river, which thanks to the efforts of Ed Muskie has been cleaned up, and I'm happy to report features some of the best fishing in North America. So you anglers, get out there. So I like this picture because it really shows the rocks on the falls, iconic falls. And looking at those falls on the right-hand side of the photo, which I don't often see when I'm driving over because I'm driving and I'm not paying attention to what's around me. That how that would have thwarted Arnold's march, and really has deterred a lot of expansion of kind of like waterway industries that other communities that don't have big waterfalls in the middle do. So we're the last dam. So fish now can come from the Atlantic Ocean all the way up to Kennebec, and they stop here. So we're which is great. It used to be the Edwards Dam down in Augusta, but with that removal of that kind of your free river, almost. If we're talking about bridges, I would be remiss in not talking about our wonderful Two-Set Bridge, which was the the second kind of like toll bridge that got put there, because the first one that we put up got, of course, washed away. I think that one was even, there was one bridge that washed away that they were really worried was going to take out another bridge down in Augusta, so they were able to corral it in Bassaboro as it was hurtling down to Kennebec. These bridge issues are big deals. It's scary. I mentioned, shared this wonderful fella, Harvey D. Eaton, because he was, he's one of my heroes, and was a real champion of great ideas and collaboration. Harvey D. Eaton was a Waterville attorney who was active at the time of the turn of the century, who was responsible for the creation of the Kennebec Water District. The need to get clean water became increasingly important as our city became, even bigger and needing, these resources to keep our citizens okay. And so they were really struggling trying to find good water sources, especially as we were floating the mills that made the water not so tasty. And so rumor has it that as he was walking back from West Waterville, which was Oakland, so here I'm walking like Harvey D. Eaton, he got to the point, where J&S Oil is right now at Upper KMD, right across from Penny Hill. So I think he got to about that point, and he looked out over Waterville. And he saw Waterville, and he saw Fairfield, he saw all these towns kind of all together, and so it was from that view of our region, as kind of that bigger view, that he got the inspiration for the Kennebec Water District. Why don't we all work together to try to find the best solution, with safe resources, and we will, be friends. So he was right, and that became a model that was implemented throughout our nation. Now, it's critical to report that the Historical Society has been the recipient of Harvey D. Eaton's personal paper collection. They are, no, you got stuck out, I don't have it here. They're wonderful. He kept copies of every letter he sent, and had them bound in beautiful volumes that has his name in gilt gold letters on the spines. He was really cool. And so we have all these letters that we are just beginning to really start jumping into. But we know that his letter collection has really revealed a great deal about our community in that time period. He was also the founder of Central Maine Power and served as president of Central Maine Power for a number of years. And he was also, I have to also mention him because it was at the basement of his law office that the first library was located. Woo! So when the library was first founded in 1896, we didn't have this wonderful building, but he housed the first Waterville Free Library in his basement. He was just kind of the real deal. Harvey Eaton. And he looks nice too. Yeah, he does. Oh, Harvey Eaton. So there's a wonderful picture called from Whitney. It's kind of a gloomy picture because it really is like, it's very ominous looking. You can see all the things spewing out of the factory, the smoke, over here. We know that that's, something liquid going into our river. And it's taking up that island that I didn't even know existed too. But, it's really dominated the landscape here of the Kennebec River for generations. I'm sharing this with you all because I love it. So Waterville Centennial, which I haven't even touched, I'm going really talky, but Sunday we'll talk and meet just about the Centennial because it was smashing. I've never seen such an opulent use of bunting, and I'm going to plead my boy to get bunting on City Hall because they had bunting that were, like 40 feet long. It was just gorgeous. And, it was obvious that it was a great time of celebration for our community. It was a time of prosperity, a time of great civic pride, tremendous community engagement. Over 200 people participated in the Centennial Committee, and reports of the committee work says, we don't know if this is true, but this is what they wrote, that there was no, not a crossword, everyone worked in harmony, that it was the very, I know it's a character.
I hear a lot of sneakers back here.
And it really was an experience that, really befitted Waterville's great centennial. It seems to be a time of real civic joy. If there can be such a thing, but I think there can be. I think that, and there's a wonderful, the return envelope. This is a letterhead of the return envelope that says, Waterville, the handsomest city in Maine. I love it. And they list the annual wages.
What's the population there, Sarah?
10,000.
Jeez.
Yeah, the handsomest city in Maine. I've read that in more than one place. Waterville used to be called the prettiest city in Maine. I told that to somebody and they were like, I don't even believe you. And and looking at this history, seeing all the gorgeousness of our elms, really makes it clear that we deserve that reputation. We are on the way back to deserving it again. But Waterville was just this real jewel in the state and continues to be. Now, I have been talking nonstop for a long time, 75 minutes, which is, I'm sure, enough of me for anybody. And you can see we haven't even gotten really into the 20th century. There's a lot in Waterville to talk about. I'm pleased to report that our history is rich, diverse, and full of really remarkable stories about lots of different people and lots of different things. And we haven't even talked about Alvin Lombard, who lived next door, and his treads that changed the world, creating the tank and the snowmobile. So I hope to be sharing this information with you at another time. But I'm going to wrap it up tonight. We have some birthday cake because it is Waterville's birthday. And I'm grateful that you have shared this time with me, and I'm grateful that you've listened to my sort of waxing on enthusiastically about this great community. Waterville's history, the more I know it, the more I love this town. And I think that that's the truth for all of us. I recently gave a presentation for some teens over at Veterans Park about, veteran service in Waterville. I got this great little note, and one of the teens wrote, thanks for telling me about Waterville. I'm glad I live here. I know, and it's like, me too. So I hope that you all, are glad that you live here in Waterville. If you don't live here in Waterville, I hope that you're glad that you get to be here in Waterville, because it's great.
And that's it. So thanks for coming tonight. I hope that you all will join me for some birthday cake and celebrating Waterville's 213th birthday. It doesn't happen every day that you get to be that great age. And I hope that you too stay in touch and keep an eye out for additional kind of reports of history such as this that we can share. And if you have ideas about things that you'd like to hear about, then I ask that you please let me know. We have some really wonderful brains in this community who have a great understanding and knowledge of all of the things that have been happening in our community these past year. So I encourage you to let me know, and let's go eat cake. Thank you. So I'm going to go cut the cake, and I hope you all join me. I would say ask questions, but I probably don't